we have talked already a little bit about privacy, and like what I'm also excited is actually that I'm here with Yoni, who is also around like 15 years in the app ecosystem. This almost as long as it exists, right? The first
Just
app
about.
when it's been launched, and I think like you have been at one of or some of the most iconic companies that defined the app ecosystem throughout that way, and we want to talk about specifically the latest changes and the uncertainty we have on iOS and also in the future on Android when it comes about like, okay, how do you maneuver running ads, driving value with all the different methods, how attribution is being done, how do you understand data inside your app and how to leverage that. So maybe first, from one step back and just looking at this whole privacy development, it started all first with regulations in Europe, GDPR, then you came over also here in the US, then you had Apple, as you said, like with ATT, we have Google talking about Sandbox. So like you in your role of overseeing a lot of different marketing channels, like how did it impacted you, and then how did you approach that?
It's a great question. So as you said, I've been in the space for a while, as of you. And I think one thing that keeps me in the space, because before I came into this industry, I actually hopped around very different careers. But what I like about this is it's a very dynamic industry. It keeps evolving. Tactics that we were doing 12, 15 years ago is very different from what we're doing today. Privacy changes. What was relevant 3 years ago has evolved. It's like even if you sold for it 3 years ago, it doesn't mean that you're still compliant to the new regulations that are around. So we constantly adapt. We constantly grow and stretch ourselves and tackle the newest fire.
Yeah, and you have from the learnings and how you started, you have the feeling that you did everything right, or are there any gaps you think that you have?
I'm sure they are. Thankfully, no huge fines from the regulators, so I'll take that as a win.
Yeah, not yet. Yeah, very good. Let's dig deeper into I think what a lot of people here also dealing with is the whole ATT setup, iOS. We have that around already a couple of years now, and also there a lot of things changed, not only with Apple itself, but also with all the different players in the ecosystem to try to create new solutions around that. So how was it for you? First the relatively fast shift with the how to deal with ATT, and maybe just talk about that journey, how you tackled that, and where you are maybe right now.
It's a huge topic. ATT, and as it actually relates, the scan is really impacting us. We're free-to-play company, meaning that 3-4 years ago we were very device-driven, right? Less interested in terms of specific users, but definitely cohorting and slicing the data in many different ways, and that has gone away. It also impacted us on the ad side, that ad revenues were impacted without the ability to kind of share specific PII and share it back with the networks. Their value went down, which impacted the CPMs that we were seeing. From a user acquisition side, we had to evolve, right? Instead of creating per se user profiles, it's trying to understand what are the data points that we still have and utilizing that a lot more. So leaning into first-party data, which we have. Again, less interested in specific users, more in terms of cohorting, seeing trends, and trying to utilize that.
Yeah. We also saw I think when that all came out from us being a DSP and looking into the inventory on iOS, we also saw suddenly inventory got 50% cheaper on iOS, where like it's actually interesting because like the gap you have there, because I mean the users behind them, they are still valuable, they are the same, but just like this intransparency you are having there, like, okay, but what are they doing? Well, like what do they mean for us? I can't measure it the way how I used to measure. It's exactly like the thing. So the early adopters who tried to tap into that, they got like the benefits of targeting an audience, which is still very valuable. Yeah. On the other hand, it's like it's this balance. Like, how do I understand if that's actually driving any value for me? Because this whole methodology changes. Anything you have maybe tested or how you've tackled that?
So yes, and by the way, what actually also happened is like as iOS went down, budgets were shifted over to Android, so that became super expensive and also impacted us. Stuff that we've been testing, very different things like working closer with our game studio. So Scopely is a game company. Understanding more like what's a roadmap, what's the live labs, how do we kind of measure that, seeing what users are interested in the game and highlighting those aspects, which is also, it's helpful on the UA side, but also in terms of the retargeting, like driving the users back, giving them the reason like, hey, it's not just like come back anytime, but come back for this activity specifically. So there's a lot of things that's shifted, and we're still on our journey. We're still learning.
Now, anything like, because we also had the topic with the ATT screen and getting the consent to use something like with the ID. Was there also just like an evolution, how you started and then like learned a lot and maybe have already some best practices? Because like there are also industry numbers where it says like, well, actually more and more users give the consent. Obviously there is like exactly, okay, how much trust do you have with your user, right? With your consumer, customer. And the more like I think the higher the trust is, the more they are also open to give the consent, right? I don't know how it was for you.
I'd also add to that people, like the industry changes and people adapt. So like before there was ATT, people weren't even thinking about that. And then they're getting like this option, hey, do you want to share your data or not? So default is, no, I don't care. But as the industry matures, they understand like there actually is value from sharing data, whether it's like cheaper, it's worth money, so maybe you can get stuff cheaper, or there's other reasons, other values that you can provide by sharing information.
Yeah.
So a little bit of an evolution there as well.
Yeah. Yeah. I think from our end, we also saw that while it sounded like, okay, well, the whole industry on iOS collapsed, there are no IDs, so you can't do anything. But us being like focused on retargeting, re-engagement, which is still like based completely on ID, we didn't see like any revenue drop on iOS. Yeah, and also like even when I compared pre-ATT, pre-iOS 14.5, when it has been rolled out, the number of IDs we see actually tripled to today. Like today it's tripled, so we're having actually access to 3 times more users. Just why is that? It's obviously, okay, COVID happened and although during that sites, and more users are actually using apps and doing more things. And I think just like this more natural shift that the audiences are using apps, you can see it, yeah, and you get then, with the combination, get also consent and so you can still do like a lot of things with that. Any other, I know also one of the big topics that came up there where everybody said, okay, that's now the future, is incrementality, media mix modeling. Any experience with that?
Yes, so it's interesting. One of the things that we observed is as things have progressed, a lot of tactics that have been around and being utilized for retargeting is lending itself to UA. So as models are changing, level of insight is changing, like understanding incrementality, understanding cannibalization, understanding like what's actually helping drive. So it's not just incrementality, but which channel is driving the most value is stuff that we've been doing in retargeting space, but it's newer to the UA space.
Yeah. There's also like for us, when Apple announced it, the first idea was exactly like, okay, use incrementality capabilities and map them and now adjust the product so that you can run on no ID environments and still have scientific results to understand impact. And exactly like use that advantage. Well, inventory is cheap, target the whole audience, but still have very good scientific results to understand what's the impact of a media boost there, media campaign. And then, that's working out. I mean, we had it earlier. Obviously, it's a bit more like more expensive to set up, that takes a bit more. It's not as easy to just like run and then every day you just optimize. But I think like getting a feeling and still having the option to tap into that inventory, it's a good solution. As you said, like more and more offering that, also more and more testing it out, and gives you transparency and the ability to tap into that, right?
Absolutely.
Any other things on iOS? What you think, or also because obviously, like, I mean, we are now October, so usually new iOS coming up with new features. The Scan 5, everybody's already talking about, and Scan 4 is actually not really there yet. But yeah.
Yeah, as you say, Apple likes to keep us on the feet. Scan 3, the difference between Scan 4 and Scan 3 is huge. Yeah. People haven't really adopted, on a large part, Scan 4. And then recently Apple kind of hinted on Scan 5. Yeah. And they haven't really kind of shared what that actually means and what it changes. But based on the shift from 3 to 4, there's assumptions that it's going to have like a huge difference. Yeah. So, as always, we will adapt.
Yeah. It was interesting, like from our experience, it's exactly like you said. Usually, Apple hasn't been so open with the industry and what they are thinking and how they want to move forward. But lately, so we have now a path to Apple and are talking to Apple. And like we were talking also exactly like about the point of retargeting re-engagement. So they have hinted exactly. So they will have re-engagements in Scan, so you can see if somebody is coming back into your app based on the campaigns what you're doing. So you have at least like the transparency there. And then we were talking about, okay, how can you do retargeting in a privacy preserving way? So they asked us also how to do that, and we just like mainly referred to the way how Google is thinking about it. But also, like they said, that developers are coming to them and saying, okay, what's the number one thing you want to have on iOS for ads? And constantly it has been named like retargeting, re-engagement, because this whole channel is kind of like it's complicated to do, or at least it's limited to where you have an ID. So they have it like high on the list, and at least we got the feeling after the bad feedback they got from the developer community based on the way how they're communicating it, how they're rolling things out, that they want to do like a bit more impactful updates so that they can be helpful for the industry. We have to see how it goes, but it's a good sign. At least they are opening up, and maybe it helps us all in the industry to just like shape it a little bit more, that it can work out. Let's see.
Yeah, absolutely. It was a glaring gap that's in previous versions, and just like as you said, we've been in the space for a while. When I joined, I think most games thought that they had a shelf life of 1 year or maybe 2 if they were really good. But there's been multiple game companies that have been around for a while in the games that are continuing to do well, Candy Crush, etc. And if you think about it, the games have evolved. So a lot of people that played 10 years ago are not going to have the same experience that they come in now. Also, if we continuously only focus on new users that have never seen the experience, as time goes by, the available people, it's going to get less and less and less, right? So it's also, how do we re-engage with the users, those that came in, did not like the experience, left, or continuously we want to kind of bring them in, share like how things have evolved, share different things that are happening. So retargeting is definitely I think an important topic and a big focus that we should continuously focus on.
Yeah, and we see like how it continues on Apple, in Apple's word. Moving over to Google, right? So they are also, they just like had 25 years, right? Anniversary here close by. So yeah, and they have a team focusing completely on the sandbox. Yeah, usually coming more from the Chrome side, but they have an Android part. And it's obviously very early, but it's very open and transparent. Like it's everybody can comment on the methods there. So from your perspective, like, are you looking into it? Like, how does it affect maybe your thoughts?
Yeah, it's definitely something that we think about, but it's a little further away. So we try and keep up with the announcement, with the press releases, but there's nothing that we feel like we can really do and test right at this moment. So it's also something that just in terms of prioritization and bandwidth and all that good stuff, we're kind of keeping an eye on, but I can't say we're actually doing anything.
Yeah, it's also
much.
Yeah, exactly. Like, I mean, from our understanding and the way how we work with Google, so the good thing is exactly like it's completely the opposite side. So Apple just like, okay, are thinking something internally, moving out and then do something in complete impact and massive waves in the industry, whereas Google is just like, okay, open up and just sharing things. I mean, also obviously they're in a different situation with just like owning the complete advertising industry almost. So yeah, they have to be a bit more careful. But they're doing it, and also like looking at the scale or the investment they do right now. They have I think around 300 to 400 people just like working on Sandbox. And we have also, like even us being a comparably small company, we have weekly calls with the Android team to just like discuss exactly like, the Sandbox developers and implementation, so that it all works out. And yeah, as you said, like where we are right now on Android is exactly like, okay, nobody can test it. Yeah, you don't have any end-to-end final version to test it, and we are mainly right now what we have as a closed loop is attribution, DSP, and then with Google like the device there, but you can't run auctions because your SSP part is missing. So apps can't really test it, the flow, and we expected that this might be doable early next year. And also what Google says, okay, when will it be ready completely? Now it's also more likely in 2 years, and then they might remove the IDs, so that's the plan. And this one can take like even more, So the way how they're rolling it out is also more, okay, they want to have a stability as a good alternative, which is not that impactful how it was for ATT. But then after they think it's good, boom, IDs out. And let's see, that might take like 3 years or so. We have to see how it develops and how the first test results are happening and how they look like. But I think also right now, when looking about day to day and what to do, iOS is exactly the way to go. It looks like Android, you can still continue just also on the privacy side, the way how it used to be, at least like for the next year. If you do budgeting also, that's at least how I have been doing it. But so maybe then looking ahead, so it's totally ready a little bit next year, 2 years, 3 years, but how it is, how is it for you? Like what do you think, how confident are you with the way things are going? Any other like areas or trends you're seeing that keeps you awake at night?
Sure. So one of the big things that we're seeing across the industry is in the gaming space is it's becoming a lot more cross-platform. Mm-hmm. Whether it's Microsoft acquiring Activision, Take-Two acquiring Zynga, etc. A lot of companies are either extending brands into other platforms that used to be PC, console into mobile and vice versa. I think we're going to see more and more of that. AI was here a topic that came up before, so that is something that we're seeing more of. Yeah. And I'm personally very interested in seeing where it takes us.
Yeah. Very good. I think AI is on everybody's plate. I think also from our perspective, there is also like experiencing when you're thinking about advertising. The first thing is about creative, right? And scaling creative, especially like as a lot of apps are globally, right? So you can do this whole localization part at least a bit more faster. And also, I think, I don't know how it is for you, but specifically the whole video creation. Video is a big part of the creative process, where it can also help in terms of localization and iteration and A/B testing. So I think that's where it's already. I mean, that one you can see already with a lot of players and in a lot of areas. So and the cross-platform one. Maybe something to add. I think when we are thinking about the negative aspects of also when Sandbox is coming and being rolled out. Is that one of the advantages or the key advantages also of the Sandbox is actually that you then don't have a different technology between apps and web. Yeah, so it's all one, which makes it then very seamless and easy to just like run campaigns on web and app. And for example, like even us, when we're talking with app developers, we buy mainly on app inventory, because then you have a closed loop and it works all really nice and fine. But when on Sandbox, actually it doesn't matter. Like you can, it's all the same standard, it's all the same logic. So you can expand into web, you can do web flows together with app flows and optimize on that. That's an advantage when you have like an aligned technology layer around it. So that might be helpful. We have like 2 minutes, and I see there are a couple of questions popping up. What is your UA versus retargeting ratio? Or is it for me or is it for Yoni? What's that?
It's hard to answer, and I can't talk too much about Scopely specifically, but it also changes. So one thing that I'd say is like, where do you see stronger performance, right? So as a performance marketer, in my being, I'd allocate the budget based on where we're seeing the best returns.
Yeah, and you said also like exactly, you hinted with the point that if you have games that are 10 years old, you have game players playing that, so maybe it's shifting more to retargeting compared to the other side. And I think it's also related, or it works well with the question, is it efficient for smaller companies to do retargeting right now? And specifically maybe because you have also smaller studios, maybe smaller games. Are you looking there into retargeting strategies, or is it?
That's also a complicated question a little bit, because it's like smaller companies, but how big is the user base, right? Because retargeting, if you're working, with most retargeting companies, you need a sizable cohort to go after. So if you don't have that cohort to go after, it might not be, you might not be moving the needle. So in the sense like, hey, if you have 10 people that you're going after, trying to bring them back, like what is the investment level versus the return that you expect, versus if you have, hundreds of thousands or millions of users you want to go after.
Yeah. And it's also, it depends on what you're selling then in the end behind it. Here subscriptions, maybe not the things, but we had like a case that we're having an app where they were selling islands. So obviously one conversion of selling an island can lead already as a good CPA, right? So there's an extreme example, but it depends there, like how it is, and then how much you want to really invest if you have already like one user who might be interested and who might be qualified as a good lead, so you can go more with that. But for most of the cases, it's exactly like, okay, do you want to invest time, resources on something where you're only targeting like a very small amount of users for you, or you focus on other initiatives? We are over time, and maybe the last one, how do you use data to inform for new titles? It's a bit different, but can you say something on?
I mean, very generic. We are a very data-driven company, so we use any data that we can to inform our decisions. I hope that's not.
Yeah, that helped. No, I think that helped. Now, changing strategies for the audience here. I hope you learned something. Thank you so much for being so calm while the food is already set up. Thank you.
Thanks a lot.
Thank you.